Hi everyone, welcome to another exciting comics loving edition of Words, Images, and Worlds, talking about the book Excavator and talking on this episode with writer Nick Arganbright. Nick, thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me, Jason.
Of course, of course. Thanks for sharing the work with me. It is interesting, lovely stuff, this world that you're creating. How did you get into this world of comics and what's the origin story? Take us back to the beginning a bit.
Yeah, I'm a big Ninja Turtle fan, and so I remember one day I was in the grocery store with my mom and grandmother, and they had what I now know to be Archie's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Adventures. And I think if I remember correctly, the very first issue I bought was like issue 16. It was like it featured like the death of a character in the book, and I knew the series was based after the cartoon show. Like characters don't die in the cartoon show, and it was this cute little like Bubba Glubba guy, and I was just like, why is he dead? I don't understand. That blew me away. And then from there, I started collecting that series, and then that uh in a similar vein, there was an accident with Ninja Turtles where they were trying to get me the novelization for Secret of the Ooze, and the guy from Walden Books bought my mother first graphic novel publishing book two of Eastman and Layer's Ninja Turtles. So where they like say, "Let's kick some," Shredder's dead. They're like running through people. They're in space, and I was just like, "Well, I'm not telling my mom she got me the wrong book." Um, but from there, and then my dad, seeing that, I think in an effort to try to connect with me, he's like, "Well, I read Spider-Man as a kid. Matter of fact, I have my Spider-Man book somewhere." And I was like, "Sure, Dad." And then one day he found them, and he had like the Death of Gwen Stacy. Granted, no cover.
Wow,
He read that thing
wow.
so much that the cover ripped off. But I think, and apparently he had more, but he read them so much that he destroyed them. But he has like starting, I think, the Death of Captain Stacy all the way up to I can't remember which, but I know Black Cat. He has the first appearance of Black Cat, first appearance of the Punisher. He was a big fan of Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, which is the precursor to Spectacular Spider-Man. And then, yeah, he also Marvel Team Up. My dad has well, I now have it. He gave them to me. I'm very thankful for. But he has Marvel Team Up, where it's the Amazing Spider-Man, and for legal reasons, they had to call him this the Not Ready for Prime Time Players, aka the first season cast of Saturday Night Live, where
Oh,
it's
yes, yes.
Jim Belushi holding the samurai sword, and it's like someone's breaking into the studio at 4H or in downtown in Manhattan, yeah, whatever. I was just like, this is so bizarre. It's funny. But I mean, from there, that's and then from Spider-Man, I started actually reading. I read his entire collection, and then I started reading and collecting like Mark Bagley's Spider-Man. So I read the first issue of Carnage when Carnage showed up. I didn't see the issue before, right? So I didn't know how he got there, but I was like, oh my God, this guy's crazy. And then I got into Venom, and then that led me to Marvel, and then obviously Batman was big because of Michael Keaton, and I kind of Batman the animated series, and it just kept spiraling from there. So that's a very long answer for that.
But so many great titles and stories there, and so many connections, and just thinking about like the world of animation meets comics, like
Mm-hmm.
and that family story. I love that too, of having those books from your dad.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely amazing. Just and like, and my dad would tell me stories too. Like, and I wish he's like he didn't doesn't have this one, but his favorite DC story is where Batman and Superman. This is what he's told me. This theory could not even exist. I don't know, but he's always told it so much that I love it, and I'd like to see it where he's like Batman and Superman would have a race to find out because everyone knows who's the strongest is, right? But who's the smartest? And so they
Mhm.
go to the I forget, oh, I feel the bad like a bad geek. Superman's place in Antarctica or whatever, North Pole, and they erase each
Mhm.
other's memories, and Superman's like bots put them back where they need to go, and they have to figure out a who they are as their secret identity, and they have to figure out who they are as their real identity. And the first one, and apparently Superman's having problems because he's like he doesn't know why he's flying. His beams, his eyes are going off like that. The way Dad talks, and Dad like says like Batman shows up. He's just like, Clark, you're Clark Kent, and you're Superman. That's why you're having problems flying. We got to get you back to so we can get your memories back because you're having problems, man. Like, by the way, I'm Batman. Like, like he's like he already figured it out in like a day. Like Clark's having problems. That's the story my dad told me. But Yeah, every once in a while I look for it, I can't find it, and I don't know if it's my Google Foo failing me, but that's another weird, weird, fun story from my dad.
I will have to find this book. This sounds really interesting. Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Of course, I know that like Superman races the Flash, like that. That's classic and
Yeah.
out there.
He also told me about that too. Like that was always his favorite. And so when he would watch the Superman animated series, he always liked it when they finally did that in
Yeah,
one of the episodes. He really appreciated that.
cool, cool. Well, tell us a little bit about Excavator. Tell us about the kind of the log line for the story, and then maybe we can talk about how this collaboration has come along.
Yeah, sure. So, Excavator is about a novice excavator or archaeologist who stumbles upon an ancient alien artifact, tries to sell it to save the family farm. Uh-oh, people want it for themselves. Enter a girl with a big sword and a cockamissile with a blaster to help him fend off strange creatures, bounty hunters, and more.
Wonderful, wonderful. Lots of cool things. The visual style, very appealing. So nod to
Yes.
Neil Carmona,
Hmm.
um, the co-creator of the book. So how did your co-creation assemble? How did that come to be?
Yeah, so I was looking for an artist for the book because I can draw, but I can't draw like that. You know what I mean? Like I'm nowhere near close to that because I've had a few friends that's like, you can kind of draw, man. Why don't you just do the book yourself? And I was like, I need something that will draw people in, and I my art style is just not that. And so I was looking at multiple places, you know, and this is how out of it I've been for a bit, right? Is like I started on DeviantArt, and because back in the day all the professionals would go to DeviantArt, even like
Hmm.
indie professionals would go to DeviantArt, and but I saw that not a lot of people stay are at DeviantArt anymore, and so then I realized, oh, they a lot of them moved to either Facebook or Instagram or ArtStation. And so I just started looking through all of that all at the same time, and one profile stuck out a lot on ArtStation, and it was Nils, and it was absolutely, it had a lot of a hint of like of Mike Mignola, and but also it was different enough that it wasn't. Do you know what I mean? Like it had shades of it, but and so I reached out to him and I said, "Hey man, would you be willing to do like some test pages for this Kickstarter I was going to do?" And because originally we were going to do it as one giant, the what is now the 6 issue arc was going to be just one book. And but also I've never kickstarted anything before really, so it was also kind of a learning experience of, oh, I need to build like subscribers and a mailing list and something to that effect, and I hadn't. So that was a learning thing too. But once we did that and I started doing it piecemeal, and we were able to build it out further from there. But it was a blast working with Nil. Nil was absolutely one of the most talented guys I've ever worked with. He's amazing.
Definitely visually appealing, and I can see that Mignola kind of shade, but something else. So yeah, and
Right.
curious about the writing. Is this a story that's lived in your head for a long time? Is this something that you've kind of built more recently?
It's recently, as of 2017, 2018, I was in a spot where creatively I was kind of hitting a brick wall. I was helping someone else with their stuff, and which I was doing willingly, but it got to a point where we were starting to the peak and paths were starting to diverge, and I was starting to feel a little bit more creatively unfulfilled, and I hadn't really thought of a new idea for a story like that was, that wasn't like part of that project or something else for a very long time. And I remember I live in Columbus, Ohio. My wife's from Cleveland, and it's about like a 2.5 hour, 2:45 like drive, and so you get to see, the countryside or whatever. And we were listening to music, and sometimes I don't know why my brain does this, but I do wonder what it's like when before we like domesticated and like kind of, you know what I mean? Like instead of like four Taco Bells and a McDonald's and some diner and a railway car, like that those used to be hills. Was it all filled with
Hmm.
trees? Was it always just a hill with grass? Like what did it look like back in the olden days? And then and that thought, I mean, this happened in a span of a few seconds, and then I just saw a girl with a big sword, which was Ozzy, and escorting around this little turtle guy, and he had a satchel. He looked really sharp, however he was dressed. I didn't have that exactly, Mark. I just knew he looked sharp, and he had a satchel, and whatever was in the satchel was really important. And that's really kind of where Excavator came from. And then the next time I think we traveled back, this time I started seeing the. Well, I also was watching Madagascar. I was giving the
Mm-hmm.
show a shot, the Netflix show of King Julian, and for some reason King Julian just he looked like an interesting character, and I looked up like a related version to his species is a cockomistal, and I was like, oh, that would be really fun to like. There's like maybe the third part of this little trio. Um, when I was traveling back up, and I was having the same kind of thought process, and I was thinking more about it, and I was like, oh, now I see three people, and I was like, oh, that maybe it could be King Julian, and then I looked at him further. I was like, because they don't want to rip off Madagascar, right? So but yeah, that's a weird convoluted. Yeah, Opal, who is the Cockamissile, is a weird thing because she looks like Rocket Raccoon, but she is not at all based on Rocket Raccoon. She is 100% based after King Julian from Madagascar. It's a very strange thing. And then from there, it was about, well, what's the story about? Like, what's in the bag? You know, kind of like Brad Pitt, like,
Yeah.
what's in the bag? What's in the bag? And then once I figured that out, and I knew whatever it had to be, it had to be really weird. And then the story kind of started building around that.
It's nice, nice. You also have a wider creative team. So, anything that you'd like to say about how the rest of the team has assembled?
Yeah, I, uh, my wife can attest to this because she's a teacher. I love telling stories, but I am awful with spelling and other things similar to that. So I need someone to really red pen me. And I have a friend who has enjoyed some of the other stuff I've written before, because I also do local theater here in Columbus occasionally, on stage as an actor, but also occasionally like writing a little thing here and there. And they were both. One of them was like, "Hey, if you ever write something, I'd love to like maybe help you in a story capacity, or like maybe even help you edit." And I was like, "Well, I need an editor." And then that was Jessica, and then Katie is the same thing. I was working with in another theater project, and I she just we were talking about Excavator. I had this idea, and she's like, and I invited her. I was like, well, I have Jessica. You should come help me, and because the plan was originally we're going to do like a little story thing, and so you can also help me after. Because the plan is to go beyond issue 6, in some capacity, whether it be a comic or otherwise. But and we just kind of almost like a writer's room pitched ideas out about where we were going and like just wrote them out. And then in doing that, it helped us also go back and like flush out what was there in those first the first originally what was the first 2 issues that were written, and then from there I was able to finish writing with their with what we talked about, and then with them as editors they're like, yeah, this isn't making sense, but this does. How can we, and they really, and that's without them having any experience as a comic book editor. They were just looking at more from the story and just spelling and that kind of thing. um that's how Jessica and Katie got involved with that. And then with the guest artists, that was the same kind of thing. It's the people who I was fans of. I would just reach out to be like, hey, would you do this guest cover for us? Speaking of Ninja Turtles, Ken Mitroni for issue 3. I'm saying 2. I'm like Shrek. 2, my lord. 3, my lord. Ken Mitroni, I'm a big fan of his. He is one of the guys who did the Mighty Mutant Animals for Archie, and of course the main TMNT adventure books. He did one of our covers for issue 3. One of the coolest things ever. Because I've followed his career for years, and he's also like worked in animation. Like he's worked on Toy Story 2. Like he's one of the guys that did one of the final designs and storyboard the sequence for Zurg in Toy Story 2. And I think they even let him he is the voice of Zurg at the theme parks or something like that. It's really kind of fun, right? Like it's scratch because it was a scratch voice and stuff like that, and they kept it as like nice little nod to Ken. But really cool stuff like that, and so that's how I got Ken. And then Emmanuel Perez, who I'm working with going forward as the colorist, he came aboard because I just really liked working with him. The ease of working with him was just so, and also he's fun to talk to as well because we talk through WhatsApp occasionally. So like we were talking recently about he's from Argentina, so Argentina went up against Spain. I don't follow football as much, admittedly, but I watched Ted Lasso, so I feel like I can contribute in very nil ways. But no, but so we talk about that, but he's also just fantastic. Like sometimes I'll sketch something out and he will help me with my art a little bit too. So it's a really fun dynamic. Working with him. And he did, I met him initially because I asked him to do a guest cover. I saw one of his pieces on Instagram. I was like, hey, man, would you be up to doing a guest cover for issue three? And then in the process of doing that, I said, hey, I need this other thing colored. Can you maybe help out with that? And he said, sure. And then that's where our kind of working relationship kept growing and going from there. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun and yeah, it's been a blast working with everybody.
Nice, nice. You mentioned being involved in theater,
Mhm.
so I usually like to ask about like connections there creatively. So how is that different, and how is it kind of the same with working in comics?
Yeah, so I think that, and for those listening can probably tell I'm very verbose, and so when you write, you do have to be a little bit more concise, or you have to get to where you're going a little bit faster. And both writing comics and theater can be very helpful with that, especially theater, especially when you have a 10 page like a short play or like a one act. You got to get in, get out, or you got to get right to what the point is. Like, what are you trying to do? Are you actually trying to tell a story? Are you really just doing a sketch? Because sometimes one act plays or shorts are technically like funny sketches or vignettes, and that's fine. And there's all types of, just like comics and other stories. There's all different types of stories, right? Same thing with plays, and so it's really helping trying to just focus on what is your goal, what are you trying to say, how you're trying to do it. Um, and then trying to apply that with writing in comics, because again, uh one of the big things about Excavator that's unique compared to some comics is that there's no really thought balloons or anything like that. I really want you, which makes it unfortunately harder for Nil and any other artist that does Excavator, is that it's more show and not tell, even though you are telling through exposition and dialogue, and that has to be its own balancing act too, right? So, and that can be hard because normal comics, there's like tons of narration or thought balloons or sub panels just kind of saying this is what's going on, and outside of location, outside of that. So, it's really been helpful in trying to help me get down to the essence of what I'm trying to say, and picking and choosing my battles. Sometimes, like, I remember somebody who read issue three was like, man, I really love this one sequence, but it could have been done in 2 pages. And I was like, you're right. But then there was a long pause, and then he was just like, yeah, but it was kind of intense though. But because you let it draw it out, you drew it out, and he's like, so I take my critique back. And I was just like, fair enough, fair enough, I get it. So it's really about picking and choosing that, and applying that to the writing.
Nice. What's it like to be at issue three now? And then anything that you'd like to say about the creative vision moving forward?
Yeah, so issue three was amazing because it's one of those things too where if I pitched this to a normal publisher, I don't think I would be able to get away with it, just because issue one doesn't start off with a big bang necessarily. And I hate saying it like that, but it's a little bit more. It's very. I've been told by this, so I'll take it. One of my friends, Travis Horseman, who does a book called Amiculus, uh, and Pythia, he said like it's very Bone by Jeff Smith esque, where Granted, I will argue that Bone, I think, ends with the locust attack. If for those who, I'm not spoiling anything, but those who read Bone, it's so there is that. But Excavator's first issue is just very much like you're just setting up the world of Boone and who Boone as a character is. And then issue two, you introduce Ozzy, and then issue three, you introduce Opal. And then issue four is where things really get cooking with everything that was set up previously. So it's been all kind of leading to issue four. And issue four, we're at the time of recording this, we're about ready to launch it here in a few weeks. I'm just putting some final touches on they want you to have a Kickstarter video, like the trailer for the book. And then once we do that, just getting it approved by Kickstarter and then getting it out there. People can check out and try to follow along now by going to excavatorcomic, all one word.com. And you can also get some previews of some of the guest covers and some of the art for the new book on there, excavatorcomic.com. It redirects you to the Kickstarter page. And if you hit the notify me on launch, when we launch, you'll get an email saying, hey, Excavator number 4 is piping hot, fresh over Kickstarter if you want to back it. So, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to because we have some really cool characters that are coming up. We have Bunta Sheen, who is a bounty hunter, uh, who's now joining the fray. Another bounty hunter, I should say, because there's already one bounty hunter that's kind of involved, and he will also show up. He's not very happy with how things left in issue 2. And then we also have someone called the Judiciary, which I've been a little bit more mum on them in terms of if you go to the Kickstarter or excavatorcomic.com, we don't really like he's in one of the covers, but I don't talk about him at all. And that's because he's going to be a really interesting threat for the characters, especially between with 4, 5, and 6. So I'm really looking forward to people seeing that.
Sounds good. It sounds like the Kickstarter is a place to go. It sounds like the web page is a place to go. And it also sounds like if you want to, you can carry this world on beyond issue 6. It sounds like you have ideas for that.
Oh yeah, yeah, completely. So there is kind of a goal that Boone is reaching towards, and he will. I'm being very vague here for spoiler purposes, but spoiler-free purposes. But he reaches that goal, but then a new one kind of sets itself, makes itself apparent, and so. Figuring out where Boone goes. I already have it kind of mapped out, and this is again, been very lucky to work with Jess and Katie on, and that's what I'm saying. I'm really excited for to get to that next phase too, because it's going to be just as crazy and a lot of fun as these have been. So
Very cool things. Well, I appreciate you reaching out. I appreciate the work
yeah.
and the creative sharing. I'm glad to have you back as more issues and stories are coming along. Did we miss anything that you want to make sure to include that people should hear before we close out?
No, I actually one thing, and I just kind of, and it's, and I apologize for not thinking there is. I also want to talk about Carlos Trigo, who is, Nil. Unfortunately, he's a busy guy, so and obviously, you look at his artwork; he's amazing. And so we had to find someone who can kind of pick up the banner and kind of go, and the art style is just as vibrant, but in a different way. So so like I had Mike Mignola on one hand, like that kind of style. Now I have a very Bruce Timm animated series style to the artwork, and they're both just beautiful. But Carlos had a hard job. You know, Nil's a tough act to follow, and Carlos has done a great job. So a big shout out as well to Carlos Trigo, who's helping us out with issues 4, 5, and 6, and just killing it. So just a big shout out to Carlos Trigo as well.
Well, cool. Well, many thanks again. Glad to chat anytime. And may the conversation continue.
Thank you, Jason. Indeed.